Welcome to the Bookies Plus weekly betting show where you'll get free NFL picks for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs from 4 of our gambling experts. Now you can find our picks all free. Bookies.com/picks. And it's not just NFL picks, all sports. We've got you covered. Jump on over. You'll love that. And don't forget, we'll have a show next week for the conference championship. We'll have shows around the Super Bowl, so you won't want to miss that. This week, we'll have picks from Bill Speros, senior betting analyst at Bookies.com. Adam, the ATM Thompson, over 60%. And his NFL picks over the last 3 years, which I think is probably 4 now. We'll have to verify that pretty soon, but I'm sure that's going there. Nick the Whale Whalen in the industry for over a decade. NBA, NFL, DraftKings, VSiN, and of course, RotoWire. And I'm Jim Coventry. And we're going to get to the picks, but we're going to start with Adam Thompson, who likes the Commanders, because the other 3 of us are on the other side of the fence. Adam Thompson, kick it off.
Yeah, I'm gonna zag where everybody else is zigging, and I understand why people are taking Detroit. Their offense is overpowering. Their defense has lost so many guys, and it just really hasn't mattered. At some point, when are these injuries on the defensive end going to at least make a game closer than it should be? I think Washington has the personnel, and they just kind of have the moxie to be that team. Detroit, they allow more points at home than they do on the road on that turf. The last, 3 of their 4 December games, we're starting to see cracks in this defense. They allowed over 400 yards passing in one game, 300 yards passing in 3 of 4 games, 322, 360 plus. And only one of those games was against an opponent that really was trying, that cared. So I think Jaden Daniels and this offense can have success here. On the other side, Washington, they've given up over 20 points just one time in their last 6 games. That one game that they did was against Philadelphia, and they scored 36 on the Philly defense at the same time. So I think this game just can be – I think it's more of a touchdown game. I'm not calling for an outright Commanders shocking victory to end Jared Goff's run here, but I think it could be closer than what the spread indicates.
Bill Speros, go ahead and flip the other side of this one.
Well, I like this line a lot better when it was 8 points. It's moved to 9.5. So that tells you where the sharp and the public money's headed. Look, I get it. I get your points about Washington, but it's kind of going to end this week. Not only have the Lions won they've won 10 straight against NFC opponents. They're the best team against the line this year at 12-5. They've covered multiple double-digit spreads, actually 2-1 on lines of 8 points or greater this year. The reason why I like this number as big as it is because the Lions have a much greater not only probability but tendency to blow these games open. And Jaden Daniels, I love him. I'm in the tank for the guy, but this thing could fall apart really quickly on the road. Mm-hmm. And if it does, you're looking at like a 20, 30-point blowout, like a single digit versus double digits, and a double digit starts with maybe a 3 or 4. Although I do like the under in this game because I'm not sure Washington's going to really be able to get anything going.
Nick Whalen, go ahead, pile on.
Yeah, I think Bill hit a lot of the key points here. Jaden Daniels proposes a different challenge, certainly, than going up against a Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold. So there is kind of this mystique as far as, what his legs could do against this Detroit defense. But we do have to keep in mind, Detroit is getting some pieces back. Darian Arnold ended up, not having a serious injury. He's on track to play. And as Rakestraw is coming off of IR, offensively, David Montgomery is back in the mix. It almost feels like they don't even need him based on how dynamic Jahmyr Gibbs was these last couple of weeks. But that's just yet another weapon. And you can see Jaden Daniels doing what he's done all season, making plays, keeping Washington in it for a while. I just think there's so much firepower on the Detroit side. Like, Detroit could score 40 in this game. That would not be shocking. And all of a sudden, you're asking the Commanders to put up 30 on the road to keep up. I mean, it's a Detroit team that has 8 wins already this season by at least 10 points. So I think I like what Bill said as far as, this could kind of be the week that the bubble bursts for Washington. It's already been a fantastic season. You got your road win as an underdog last week. That's great. we're still talking about a rookie quarterback making his second career playoff start in what's going to be a wild environment in Detroit. So I actually think Washington will play a decent game. I would be surprised if this is a total pushover. I just think Detroit has enough firepower that, Washington could play a B plus game offensively, and Detroit could just kind of cakewalk its way to 34 to 37 points here. Washington also really struggled to run the ball last week against Tampa Bay. Good run defense. Maybe they'll have a little bit more success, but I don't think you can put this game all on Jaden Daniels against such an elite opponent.
I thought it was interesting last week how the Commanders controlled 35 minutes of clock without being able to run the ball. They were very smart at just draining the play clock. That was just a very good strategy. They felt that by limiting Tampa Bay's possessions, it would put them in line to win, and it worked. It basically shortened the game. And they may go into this game trying to do the same on their possessions. But see, the problem is the Lions can do the same thing. And the problem with the Lions is they may look to drain the clock, but they may also run the ball and score on 6 plays. It could be that easy because of the explosive running game. That offensive line is very good in the run game. The pass protection isn't where it was last year, but the 3 guys on the center to the right, all among the best run blockers in the league, and they are going to run it down Washington's throats. And if Washington decides to take any chance and creep somebody up, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Jamison Williams, you got Sam Laporta, and an offensive coordinator that loves to dial up that play action if you want to cheat. And I just don't know if the Commanders can stop the Lions on a single drive, whereas the Commanders are a flawed offense. If you can't run the ball, which they're not a good run team, at some point, if you're just leaning on the pass against a team that's going to play press man and blitz, there's going to be mistakes made. And this is a game Washington cannot afford a mistake on offense. And I think they make multiple mistakes. All right, let's go to the second round of this one. We are going to go Bill and Adam. Bill's going to talk the Rams side. Adam's going to talk the Eagles side of the Rams-Eagles contest.
Well, I'm kind of falling in love with the Rams. As long as Matthew Stafford doesn't throw a bunch of picks and Kyron Williams doesn't fumble the ball. The Eagles really, really struggled last week on offense. And I'm not so sure they can afford to do that against the Rams, who have just seemed to play better and better and better each week. I don't know if the Eagles can, and I get it, Saquon runs the ball 30 times, probably gets 140 yards, but they're going to be able to get in the end zone. That's my real question. And I actually like the fact that the Rams are on a short week, and I like the fact that they've been kind of traveling. That kind of reminds me of, some of these other teams in different sports where they've sort of have, like the 2013 Red Sox, where they had this kind of massive disaster and the team sort of adopts it and, carries this kind of big attitude. I just think that they're gonna take a lot of that into Philly on Sunday, and I wouldn't put winning this game past them. I really don't. They are that team that you don't want to face in the NFC.
Adam Thompson, counterpoint.
Yeah, I was hoping the weather would be a little more frightful. There is going to be some snow. It's not going to be warm by any stretch. The winds will be moderate. But if anything takes the passing game out, that's obviously a clear advantage to the Eagles.
Time out. Bill is muffing you out. He's doing that one of those game shows where they put you in the booth and you can't hear a thing. Go on, carry on, Adam.
Well, last week,
That's smart,
week I let Adam talk me on picking the Bills.
Oh man!
So I'm doing this out of respect for Adam. Kind of like when the sirens called the sailors in mythology, and they called them out, and they came and crashed to their deaths on the sea, on the rocks. I blame myself for falling victim to the siren of the ATM. And
the siren of Bo Nix.
I really like Buffalo last week, and so this is out of respect.
Adam, it's the first time you've been called a siren in your life, and it's probably the last time, because the sirens were supposedly some beautiful sea mermaids, which were whatever that was. But anyway, carry on. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just had to break that out.
I do like the swim, so I don't know. Maybe there's maybe I was a siren in a past life, but
yes.
This one's more about Matt Stafford. Can he continue this run? And he struggles against pressure. He's 26th in the league. He's bottom 10. I think it was 26 under pressure. The Eagles bring pressure. Saquon Barkley, no team runs the ball more than the Eagles. The Rams rank 26 in yards allowed per run. So I think it all fits into, one of those games where the Eagles, they need to break out of whatever happened last week. And I think they can. I think they can get to this defense. I think they can wear them down. I think the second half especially, they can pull away. -6, I like that number. You just have to keep Stafford down. And if you can get to him, I don't think Kyron Williams is going to be able to keep up on the opposite, opposite Saquon. So -6 was just a good number that I liked. I like that it's home, and I think they can bounce back here.
Nick, before you get to your pick, do you have any thoughts on this game?
This would be the stay away for me this week, guys. I think both Adam and Bill brought up some good points. I mean, I think I would lean Philly here. I think the physicality up front for the Eagles probably wins the day here. It's hard for me to see. It's hard for me to see the Rams conjuring up that kind of defensive performance 2 weeks in a row. Especially against a more mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts. And I think we're a little too down on the Eagles. Like, they dominated that game against Green Bay in the wild card. And everything you're hearing out of Philly is, man, what a disappointment. This team is a mess. You won by 2 scores. You could have won by 3. Saquon Barkley had a 60-yard touchdown in front of him if you wanted it at the end of that game. And I don't know, maybe it depends on how you view the Packers, but I think a lot of people were high on this Packers team going into the postseason, despite what we saw in week 17 and 18. So I never saw that as some like walk in the park game for Philly. I mean, they dominated. What are we so concerned about here? So I would lean Eagles. I know the Rams feel like they have the momentum here, but I think this is a really good spot for Philly. And if we do get the cold weather, if we do get the snow, I mean, Matthew Stafford has been a brutal quarterback outdoors in snowy conditions throughout his career. So I think that's something that would play to the Eagles' favor as well.
The only thing I'm going to add is Saquon Barkley only had 300 scrimmage yards against his team the last time they played. 266 at the ground, 47 through the air. And if he gets half of that, it's still $150. That offensive line has a massive advantage. We'll look forward to this one, but that's the line on that. Nick, you're going to take the Texan side. I'm going to take the Chiefs side. Then we're going to see what Bill and Adam have to say about that game as well.
Yeah, I'm a little wary of going head to head with you on this one, Jim. The more I thought about this, I think the more I actually like the under 41.5 in this game. But
go ahead on that.
Nevertheless, I will make the case here for the Houston Texans, and really a lot of it is kind of numbers based, right? I mean, CJ Stroud 7-4 against the spread as an underdog against teams above 500 in his career since 2020. Patrick Mahomes just 15-27 against the number as a favorite of at least 7 points. That is the worst mark by a pretty good margin of any quarterback in the NFL. He's 0-5-1 against the spread in those situations this season. It comes down to how much do you trust the Kansas City offense here? Did they make some progress at the end of the year? Getting Xavier Worthy more involved, getting Hollywood Brown back in the mix. Do we see kind of the old version of Travis Kelce? Maybe he's been saving it for the postseason. If that's the case, then I think Kansas City, probably wins and covers this game fairly easily. But I think you got to take the Houston defense seriously. I mean, this is a team that I think offensively, I still have a lot of questions. I don't think they're just back after that game last week against the Chargers. Really didn't turn it on offensively until late in the game, and getting a pick six and another pick that set them up deep in the red zone. That was a big reason for that. But I think the Houston defense can do just enough, can keep them in this, can keep it a very low scoring game. I see this being like, maybe 24-17, 27-20, something like that. That would be a little bit above the scoring expectation for me. But I do think the Houston defense can do just enough, can bother Mahomes enough, can keep this game, much like we've seen a lot of Chiefs games this season. I would not be surprised if we look back and say, wow, Kansas City just dominated that game, but the score doesn't necessarily reflect it.
Yeah, good analysis on that. Other side of this thing, first of all, this is Steve Spagnuolo special. First of all, the wind chill's going to be 11 degrees. That's a factor. That is a factor. Kansas City plays well in cold weather. Houston has to make this trek. Here's the other problem. They played in week 16. Tank Dell was great until he unfortunately destroyed up his knee in the second half with 11 minutes left. But at that point, Dell had 97 yards and a touchdown. When Dell scored that touchdown 4 minutes into the second half, the Texans had 16 points on the board. They had 3 the rest of the way. That was the problem. No Dell, no second option. The game planning in that one was don't let Nico Collins run after the catch. Almost every time he caught it, a tackler was immediately on him. He was not getting anything after the catch. If you take that away, that's massive. And again, no Tank Dell here. John Mechie ain't hurting you. Robert Woods isn't hurting you. Dalton Schultz caught his touchdown while Dell was in the game and nobody covered him. Well, he's probably their second option. He probably will get covered here. They also learned, the Chiefs in that game, that Joe Mixon only runs well to the left. He can't run. The line is so bad that are middle and the right. Whenever you see him run right, he's always stoned. Middle, stoned. Left, fine. The Chiefs know this now. The Chiefs will shade some run defense that way and make it a real problem. The other thing, Chiefs get back Jalen Watson. He broke his leg or ankle back in week 7. He was also with McDuffie, their best corner. The pass defense was bad because they didn't have him. He's been practicing since week 18. He should be back. That's a massive boost. Other side of the ball, last game, they held Kelsey down a bit. That was Jimmy Ward guarding him. He's on the IR. He's gone. They're down to a third string free safety defending Kelsey. Their linebackers can't cover. Andy Reid will scheme the running backs, even Pirine, against the linebackers. Also, since Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown are there, now that speed has to be respected and the middle of the field opens up. I just think there's way too many. It's a smorgasbord of options for those coaches, and I think that the Chiefs will take advantage of all the deficiencies the Texans have. Adam and Bill, anything to say on this game?
Go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say, it's hard to go against Mahomes in the postseason. I did it all last year, and it just doesn't work out for you. So I understand. I leaned Texans before that because I like those points. I could see this just being a low-scoring game. So I kind of like the under over anything. And I lean Texans, but I'm not going against Mahomes.
And then before Bill gets it, Nick has a comment on the under as well. Why don't you grab that, and then we'll come to Bill for the final point.
Yeah, like I said, I'm talking myself more and more into the under here. And, Houston's offense has struggled as big underdogs. There's been somewhat of a rare situation with C.J. Stroud at quarterback, but he's been a dog of at least 8 points twice. The Texans scored 9 and 10 points, respectively, in those 2 games, and found a good note from our friends over at VSiN earlier today. When road teams in the divisional round fail to reach 20 points, the under is 29, 7, and 1. In the last 37 instances. So maybe a little bit of cherry pick in there. But either way, we're talking about an 81% hit rate. Texas team total is sitting at 16.5 right now.
Bill Speros, go ahead and final thoughts on that particular game, Texans Chiefs.
You said the Chiefs played a miraculous game against the Texans just 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was outstanding performance. Tank Dell was gone, and they won by 8 points. This line is 8.5. The Chiefs are 8-9 on the line this year. They went 3-7 in their last 10 games that mattered. And speaking of Travis Kelce TD was the most bet player prop this season. He scored 3 times.
Wow.
Those sports books do not pay for themselves, kids. Those DraftKings ads, they do not, they do not pay for themselves. We often fund them with our wagers.
Great point. How do you argue that one? Last round, we're going to have Bill, who likes the money line on the Ravens. Nick's going to like the Ravens, and I like the Ravens minus the points. And then Adam's going to talk about the over and under in that game. Bill, kick us off on Ravens-Bills.
Well, it's the game of the season. The 2 MVPs and all that. They played this game about 3 months ago, and the Ravens won 35-10. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to win by 25 points, but the Ravens are actually a better team now than they were in that game. They're also much healthier and much more balanced. I think their defense is kind of not quite caught up with the offense, but I think the defense is caught up enough to where they'll at least keep Josh Allen, sort of under 3 touchdowns. And I know that the Bills' offense has actually kind of opened up a bit as well, which, seems good for them. But I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl before the year started. And I just like the fact that they're playing better and better and better. And they seem to be healthier and healthier and healthier. This might come down to Justin Tucker, and, maybe he's got one more kick left in him. I don't know. But I just like the Ravens to win this thing. I'm sure it'll be close. I'm sure it'll be a classic. But I just got to go with Lamar Jackson. As much as Josh Allen is had a better year, I'm going to give Lamar Jackson one more shot, and this is it.
Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, this is such a difficult game. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pound the table and say you're an idiot if you're taking the Buffalo Bills, because this is the toss-up of all toss-ups, right? But I'm on Baltimore here. We've already seen obviously considerable line movement after this opened Bills -1.5. A quick reversal now to the Ravens being favored, and pretty rare to see a road favorite in the divisional round. It's only happened a handful of times over the last few decades. So I think that speaks to some of the initial confidence, in the market in this Ravens team. But obviously we have two very evenly matched teams. I just trust the consistency of the Baltimore running game a bit more. I think if you kind of look at different position groups and you say it's mostly a wash, but I think where the Ravens have the big advantage is at running back. James Cook's a very good back. He's not Derrick Henry, and I think especially in this type of environment, it's going to be cold. It might be snowy. I think these are the type of games, why you brought Derrick Henry essentially to this Baltimore team. The Bills' run defense, I think it's exploitable, right? I mean, it's been good, not great. Gave up 277 on the ground to Baltimore in that Week 4 decimation. Baltimore's been a little bit vulnerable defensively to the deep ball. Certainly better now than it was over the first half of the season. But even last week against Pittsburgh, how did the Steelers get their points on the board? A couple long passes, one to Van Jefferson, one to George Pickens. I don't know if the Bills have the personnel to exploit that weakness. Maybe we see Keon Coleman kind of do his best George Pickens impression, but both teams kind of have this committee of just good, not great pass catchers. And, I think if you're Baltimore not having to worry about, a big time receiver down the field, I think that's an advantage. I will say we have to watch the status of Zay Flowers. Did not practice on Wednesday. We should get an update on him soon. If he's not out there, I think that absolutely matters. Baltimore, they're more comfortable, I think, with Rashad Bateman than they've ever been. They can always dip into some of their reserve tight ends, but not having Zay Flowers would be a big deal. That is something that would cause me a little bit of pause, but I still do think there's a good chance that he's out there. And a couple notes on the total here, guys, as well. It's up at 51.5. I would lean under. I know that sounds kind of crazy given the offensive potential that we have here, but again, we're looking at like 15-degree weather, some snow, maybe a little wind. Lamar Jackson has never played in a postseason game that is finished with more than 44 total points. The highest scoring game he's ever played in was that 34-10 win against Houston last year. Now, Josh Allen has played in 4 playoff games that have gone over 51.5 and 2 more that finished at exactly 51. So maybe that's a wash, but I think if you think Baltimore wins and controls this game, history suggests that it will be lower scoring.
The weather in this game is projected to be 8 to 12 degrees. The wind chill 0 to 2. This makes a difference. There's a massive difference. The ball is not the same in cold weather. It does decrease the passing game. I've been saying for 2 months, if we see Derrick Henry in either a snowy or a freezing game, Lord help the opponent, because they are in a world of hurt. And I don't care if Zay Flowers out. They don't need him. They do not need Zay Flowers in this game. Patrick Ricard, in a good game, he'll play 47% of snaps. I think he's on the field 65% of the time. He's 300 pounds. You could call him an offensive guard. You could call him a tight end. You could call him a fullback. Call him what you want. But Buffalo has always been constructed to stop the pass. This team is built to beat Kansas City. They are not built to beat a bully offense. They play nickel defense as their base. The defensive linemen are good at pass rushing. They are not good run stoppers. Derrick Henry torched them for $1.99 last time, but they've added something to that offense. And we saw it against Pittsburgh. When Pittsburgh came out last week, I knew they were going to have try to have an answer for Derrick Henry. And on the first possession, Pittsburgh sent everybody at Henry. What did Lamar do? 5 straight plays, pulled the ball, torched them. That's the big difference. So if Buffalo comes out and says, we're stopping Henry, Lamar will crush them on the ground. But Patrick Ricard is a massive factor in this game, because if they want to send an extra body or send somebody on blitz, 300-pound Ricard against the 230-pound safety they're going to put in, good luck, because you are going to be on your back all afternoon. I'm passionate about this game. That's it. I just think the Ravens cannot be stopped on offense, and I think the turnovers are going to be lessened because Lamar may not have to throw 15 passes in this game. I'll shut up. Adam Thompson, go ahead.
I agree completely. The weather will be a factor to the pass game, but neither one of these teams want to pass us that much anyway. And I don't think either one's going to have to score points. They rank number 2 and number 4 in run percentage. So I think that's going to continue. Obviously, the big difference is Baltimore ranks number 1 in run defense. Buffalo at home, 28th in yards allowed per rush attempt. Derrick Henry, it's going to hurt the defense more than it's going to hurt the offenses. I think this cold and snow, when you got these guys leaning on you, when you're trying to stop Cook and Allen, it takes off. I think both run games are going to be very successful. I think, like everybody's mentioned, Baltimore has very clear paths to success offensively. They could easily score 30 points in this game. Buffalo, it's a little trickier, but we've been saying that kind of all year, and they score at least 30 points in 10 of their last 11 games that matter. So I think either one of these teams could score 30 points. I do lean Baltimore for sure when it comes against the spread, but one of these teams is going to score 30, and the other one isn't going to be held to under 20, I don't think, unless Lamar Jackson, pray that we don't have to deal with this narrative for another 12 months. Do something in the postseason. I think both these teams could hit, at least in the upper 20s.
As great as the picks are, I always like this last segment of the show with the final thoughts. So if you're staying tuned, please stay tuned because there's always a lot of good nuggets in this. Bill, what's your final thought for the divisional round weekend?
Ohio State minus 8.5. I think you're going to see a bludgeoning, especially in the second half. If you like Notre Dame, you can take them in the first half. It'll be close, like 10-7. Second half, Ohio State's going to blow them out of the building. They are so deep, so balanced. They've crushed everybody, except for Michigan, of course. And Notre Dame, last time I checked, is located in Indiana and not Michigan, although it's close to the Michigan border. It's in Indiana. So I think Ohio State rolls to the national championship on Monday night.
Now, Bill Speros, last week, you gave everybody on the Bookies Plus site. You gave them the Notre Dame pick. You gave them the Ohio State pick. I used my DraftKings profit boost. That was very, very nice to have. So thank you for those. And I'm going to definitely roll with your Ohio State University pick here. Adam Thompson, final thought of the week.
Teams coming off the bye, going in the divisional round, have covered only 40% of the time over the last 2 decades, I believe. So, that behooves those who are going against the big boys and taking the points. Take it for what it is.
Nick Whalen, closing thoughts.
I don't have much this week, guys. I am hoping and praying that Notre Dame finds a way to get it done as a Wisconsin Badger. I do not subscribe to this belief that, if your team is out, you just root for another team in your conference. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's the same with these Packers fans, Adam, who are like jumping on the Detroit bandwagon. I don't want to see a rival team win. What are we talking about? Like that is worst case scenario. So I'm hoping that Notre Dame
celebrating Aaron Judge dropping that ball in the World Series. I got to get my Mookie Betts World Series champion shirt.
Yes. You don't want to see anybody in your conference win the Super Bowl. So sending up some prayers for Notre Dame. I'm also in an interesting situation here, guys. I threw in a 5-leg parlay for Wild Card Weekend, mixed in some NBA, some stuff for Wild Card Weekend, and then to finish it off, it's a 50-1 parlay. All I need is a Travis Kelce anytime touchdown this weekend. I'm trying to get creative and find ways to hedge this. It's tough. Travis Kelce, no touchdown, is minus 200. So any input that you guys may have, either on the show or privately, please let me know.
Well, I think she who shall not be named will be there, and this is a nationally televised game. And I've probably said or written this 100 times in my life in Bookies and elsewhere. What the NFL wants, the NFL gets. They want her celebrating in the booth. They want her jumping up and down. They want her euphoric. So they'll, Goodell, the refs, Andy Reid, they're all going to get together and they'll scheme up a play where he gets a touchdown. So I think you're in good shape in that one.
I saw something today or yesterday that Ohio State's opponents have not been called for a holding penalty once this year. They have not been held all season long. Now this is going to become a story. I wonder what the over-under is on Notre Dame holding penalties. 0.5. Go take the over.
That's amazing. Nick Whalen, to give you comfort, and I mentioned this during my analysis, Houston's down to a third-string free safety. That's a massive – and Andy Reid, when he schemes it up, he's going to see they've got a liability there, and the free safety typically will cover the tight end, and they can't dedicate extra resource to Kelsey because of the speed of Worthy and Brown. So he probably does have open space to deal with. So I think you're looking in good shape there. My final thought is I really had to process last weekend's wildcard games. There were 5 blowouts in 6 games. And then it came to me, and I should have saw this ahead of time. This is the postseason of the haves and the have-nots. A lot of great records in the league this year, but there were a lot of really bad teams. This playoff field has some elite teams and some very big pretenders that in a normal year would not be contending at this level. I think that last week, a lot of the pretenders got knocked out. I think the Texans are still a pretender. I think that the Commanders are still a pretender. And I think that in those specific games, we're going to see these pretender teams have the same fate that we saw in the first weekend when the teams that belong there really take care of business. This has been the Bookies Plus Weekly Gambling Show. Now make sure you bookmark bookies.com/picks so you can check out our free picks. Again, NFL and other sports. We'll have a new episode for next week's conference championship games. We'll also have shows before the Super Bowl. We'll keep you posted on that. And everyone, we will see you next week. Be profitable.